Hi guys, Mac here. I'm following up a comment on one of my reviews of the 2018 Mac Mini or MacBook Air, asking me how am I getting on with the i9 MacBook Pro. Now I've had this device from when they were released pretty much, and there was a lot of noise originally about them around issues around thermal throttling and a few other things. So I thought it'd be worth revisiting. Now let's have a look and see what this machine is. There we go. So this is the 2018 15-inch. It's got a 2.9 gigahertz i9, which is 6 cores with hyper-threading. This one also has 32 gig of RAM in it as well. If we look at the system report, you'll see that this has got 2 graphics cards in it. It's got the discrete Intel one, and it's also got a Radeon Pro in there as well. Now, I think you can get Vega chips for these now as well, which will even be even faster than the Radeon Pros. Let's fire up and have a look at the benchmarks. Now, just a general point, I found this machine to be by far the most capable laptop I've ever owned, and I've loved it. Now I get that some people may query that, certainly around the issues around the thermal throttling and all that sort of good stuff, but personally I think it's been a brilliant laptop for me. If we look at the benchmarks, you can see that it sits just below the 2018 Mac Mini in terms of performance, but not massively so. Do I feel an awful lot of difference in general day-to-day usage between the MacBook Pro, Mac Mini or the iMac Pro? No, I don't. So if I'm doing something like video editing or firing up and working with some virtual machines, from what I see on the screen, it doesn't feel a lot difference between those three machines. Where they really come into their own, certainly with the iMac Pro, for example, compared to the Mac Mini and the i9, is that I can do a lot more on the iMac. So I'll end up running all my virtual estate, for example. I'll also have my Final Cut Pro rendering some videos for YouTube and all that sort of stuff, and the performance doesn't seem to slow down. So I think what you get with all that power is, an ability to scale out how many things you're doing, rather than an actual look and feel faster on the specific application that you're using at the time. And that's very much the case for the i9. It's been a very, very capable machine. I find it very, very quick and very, very powerful. What about the i7 2018 unit? Well, let's have a look at the benchmarks for that. So if we look at the i7 benchmarks, compare them to the i9, you're looking at a single core score 5054 against 5537 and a multi-core of 23859 on the i9 against 21376 on the i7. That's not that big a difference. Now, the question of whether it's worth the money to upgrade from the i7 to i9, well, that's a monetary one rather than a performance one, I think. The performance difference looks relatively marginal. Now, personally, I tend to jump up and get the most powerful unit that I can, simply because I can. Does that mean I think I'd be disappointed with the i7? Well, looking at these benchmarks, certainly not. I suspect the experience is very, very similar between the two. Now, what about the previous edition? So I also have the benchmarks here for my 2017 unit, which is here. Now, this is where the jump up really is significant. So if you look, for example, at the single core on my 2017 unit, was 3858 against 5537, but the multi-core, 23859 on the multi-core on the i9 against 15458 on the multi-core for the 2017. I think you can agree that the step up there is actually quite significant. So the units actually benchmark really well. So let's have a look at, for example, the disk speed. Now bear in mind I am currently recording this in QuickTime, and that does tend to hit the drive performance. So some of the figures here, for example, I've often seen them approaching 2 gigabit per second for write times and nearly 3 gigabit per second for read, which is pretty astonishing for a laptop, really. But it does, of course, build towards that overall fluidity of how you use the machine and how fast it feels. What about things like thermal throttling? Well, the big issue we had with thermal throttling when the machines first came out was the performance was very sporadic. Once the machine got hot, the clock speed of the processor was wound back quite a lot. We don't tend to see that so much anymore since it's been patched, but of course this machine is going to thermally throttle. So let's have a look at what happens when we flatline the processor. So what I'm going to do is just open one of my travel videos and we're just going to convert it. What we should see here is the cores ramp up. There we go. And because of that, of course, you'll see the temperature as well. So if you look at the temperature on the left there, it is hitting 97, 98 degrees, and you will see the thermal throttling starting to happen. So on the frequency, you'll see that it's wound back to around 2.5 gigahertz. So that's your issue with the thermal throttling on the i9, because it seems to throttle back to below the stated clock speed of 2.9 gigahertz, which is, I think, what everyone was getting upset about, possibly quite reasonably. Anyway, that demonstrates the point, so I'm just going to kill this. So what about this question of fan noise? So that's another question that I get. So I will say that the fans on the i9 are louder than on the 2018 Mac Mini, which is a bit of a surprise, isn't it? So what I can do is I can show you. So we've got the max fan control here, which allows us to control the fans. I'm also going to try and measure the sound. I'll try and get it on the microphone, but I've also got a sound measuring device on my iPhone, so I'll try and include that as well. So I'm just going to whack the fans up to maximum here. And what you're seeing in the inserted iPhone screen is the measurement of the sound. Now I'm going to be quiet for a moment just so it can measure the actual fan noise. So running flat out, we're getting about a 59 decibel reading. Now, what does it read if I turn the fans off so they're all the way down? Now, I don't know how to demonstrate this really. I'll try and actually capture the noise as well. But let me bring the fans all the way down and we can see what the difference is. There we go. We're getting about a 45 to 46 decibel reading with the fans down and about a 59 decibel with the fans up. So let me ramp them up again and we'll just double check those readings. There we go. Now, like I say, it is louder than the Mac Mini. Is it intrusively so? Well, I don't think so. I mean, I don't really notice it that much. I mean, the only time the fans seem to ramp up is when I'm hammering the machine, either with virtual machines or video conversions, that sort of stuff. So it's not so much of an issue. It may be more issue for you if you're doing things like music or stuff like that. So what about things like virtualization? Because like I've said before in my other videos, that's mostly what I use these machines for. I like the fact that I can run lots of different virtual machines. I can do them anywhere, whether it's on my big iMac Pro stuff or whether I can take it out to site with me running on these MacBook Pros. That's my main usage. So let's have a look at them and I'll show you what the virtualization performance is like. I mostly use Parallels on this machine. So I have a Windows 10 machine. This is exactly the same machine that I was running on the Mac Mini, by the way. I've just moved it across to this machine. So let's have a look at the configuration of it. If we look at the hardware, I've got 6 cores allocated to it and 8 gig of RAM. I'm going to actually take that down. So let's take that to 2. I'll leave the RAM as it is and we'll fire it up and see what the performance is like. There we go. That didn't take too long at all. Let's get logged in. And there we go. If you have a look at Task Manager, it will show you the configuration that's on this machine. There you go. You can see our 2 virtual processors. You can see that we've got 8 gig of RAM. So what about general performance? Well, I've got Office on this machine, so let's fire that up. We can have a look at that. There's Excel. We can fire up Word. There's PowerPoint as well. Now, to give you an idea of the performance of this, my usual day-to-day office environment is a Windows 10 environment with Outlook in there because I have to use certain plugins and things that I can't get in macOS. And I don't really feel the difference between running Windows 10 in Parallels as to say running it on my Surface Book 2. If anything, this is going to be faster. So the performance is that good. Now, of course, you also get the added benefit of doing things like snapshotting. Well, let's have a look at the snapshots. So I'm going to take a snapshot. Done. Now, typically the time for snapshotting is usually around the restore times rather than the actual taking. So I'm going to remove Office from this machine. Now, it's really dull, so I'm not going to make you sit through that, but let's just remove Office and we use that as a demo of the snapshotting. Okay, so we've got Office off this machine. Just took a couple of minutes to do. What I'm going to do is actually just restore that snapshot. We're going to go back to that one. There we go, it's done. We should see now that we've got Office back on there. So it's that snapshotting and that ability to run lots of different virtual machines all at the same time. That's why I really get the benefit of the power and scalability of this machine. I must admit the ability to jump up to 32 gigs of RAM has made a world of difference to me as well. Because when I was running virtual machines before, it was rare that I was getting processor bound. It was typically that I was always running out of memory. But you can see here with that machine running, my memory utilization is still really low. Anyway, let's get that machine shut down. Done. So what about general local performance? Well, I can show you Office. Let's fire up Word. Let's get Excel running as well, and maybe PowerPoint. And you can see here from the stats that, the machine is practically doing nothing. So what's my verdict on this machine? Well, like I said earlier, I've loved owning this laptop. It's been by far the most powerful thing I've used. And the ability to have so many different virtual machines running at the same time has been so useful. In fact, I used to carry around a 2015 MacBook Pro and also a 13-inch, so I could run some of my background VMs on that when I was out doing demos and things like that. While my front-end stuff, the stuff that was actually up on screen and demoing on the 15-inch, I don't have to do that anymore. I have one laptop that can carry everyone. It can do absolutely everything. And it's been brilliant. I haven't really noticed any issues with the thermal throttling. I'm not saying it doesn't thermal throttle, because obviously it does. What I'm saying is it's not really affected my workload at all. Can you get i9s with this chip in that can maintain better performance for longer under load? Of course you can. I'm sure you can. But for me, this package has been a great combination of power and portability. Anyway, I'm going to finish up there. It was a very quick summary of just how I've been getting on with the i9. And the answer is very well. It's a great laptop and I love it.